Good afternoon, everyone, or I should say good evening. I know it's just gone 5 o'clock in South Africa, and you guys have all just come off the local elections. I'm sitting in Portugal today. Funny enough, I do live in Cape Town normally, but I'm in Europe with a lot of my colleagues on the call. And today we'll be speaking about a really interesting European country, the only English-speaking one. We'll be speaking how you can become Irish through an investment. And before I do that, just by way of introduction, my name is Andy Rissick. I'm the Group Commercial Director and International Director for Sable International, and I look after our investment migration business. So just before I get to introducing all those wonderful looking people on the screen, I'll just tell you a little bit about Sable. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're an international cross-border professional services business, originally headquartered in London. Our head office is still there today. We have a really big presence in South Africa, and we are also expanding into the EU, hence the fact that I'm in Portugal at the moment. And we also have offices in Australia. So 4 core sort of activities that we do. We help individuals and businesses move money all over the world, as long as it's fiat currency. We're not into crypto yet. We help with cross-border tax matters, both for corporations and for individuals. And then we help with offshore investing, either into real estate or normal independent financial advice. So anyone with a requirement to invest and hedge from South Africa, we're very happy to have a chat to you as well. In the UK, we have a big accounting business that really specializes in helping companies set up their subsidiaries in the UK to access the northern markets. And then we have a really big residency and citizenship and immigration business, and that's part of what we'll be talking about today. So we're very well known in the UK immigration space. Philip Gamble's a partner of ours, and that's sort of more around UK nationality. We help a lot of people move to countries like Australia, New Zealand, the UK to go on work permits, spousal visas, etc. And then more recently, probably 6-7 years ago, I started what is called Sable Investment Migration, and that is the business through which you can acquire either a second residency or citizenship by way of investment. And so I think that's enough about our business. We have been around for close on 26 years now, and very well established in the space. One of the reasons that we like Ireland, well, not one of the reasons, I mean, we've chosen Ireland as one of the countries as an investment migration destination. Most South Africans have got a strong tendency towards Europe, and English is obviously the sort of the official language in South Africa, particularly for business, and I think most people in South Africa do speak English. So those are 2 really good reasons why Ireland does make sense. But there are other really compelling reasons why we like Ireland. It's a fully committed member of Europe. It's part of the EU. It's part of the Eurozone, so it uses the euro currency. And it's a very, very strong economy. It's a very forward-thinking and competitive environment. The Irish have always been very clever at attracting big corporations and lots of skilled people to their countries with a view to foreign direct investment and job creation. So I think that they really do set up very high there, and they don't only talk about it, they actually really do deliver. It's home to some of the most successful big companies, and there are obviously also lots of small, medium-sized businesses. And I think Ireland is also a very entrepreneurial country. And in the world that we're moving now, sort of post-COVID, with the gig economy and people working in tech and being able to work remotely, Ireland is actually really attractive. It also has good rule of law, good property rights. It's got a great education system. It's really a very, very strong first world country. And it also makes some really good beer, which I'm not going to talk about because I'm not qualified. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run through the panel of speakers that we have. But we have got 3 real Irish people on the panel today. So before I jump onto them, I'd just like to introduce Sarah Young. She's sitting there with that sort of little Sable banner behind her. She is our investment migration consultant and very well experienced in the space. So welcome, Sarah. And then more importantly today, we've got Joanna Murphy. She's CEO of the IDLF Investment Fund. I'm going to let each one of them just give you a little précis on who they are, and to talk about what they do and why they work with Sable. Andrew Parrish, good to see you again. You have been on a webinar with us before. He's the Chief Commercial Officer also of the IDLF Fund, and we've worked really well with Andrew over the period of almost a year now. And then we have a new guest on today, Michael Magner, who will be chatting about his experience with the IDLF and what he does down south in Cork. So welcome to all of you. And I think I'm going to hand over to you, Joanna, if you can jump in and tell us about you, your role and your organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thanks so much to Sable for organizing this event. And thanks, I suppose, to everybody on the webinar for joining to find out a little bit about Ireland, and I suppose to find out a little bit about the opportunity for permanent residency in Ireland through the IDLF. By way of background, an introduction, yes, I'm the Chief Executive of IDLF. I also sit on the board of IDLF. But prior to that, I have a lot of experience, as does my colleague who's joining us here today, Andrew Parrish, in the area that Andy referred to of foreign direct investment. So both Andrew, my colleague, and I spent many years promoting an Irish government programme called Connect Ireland. And the purpose of Connect Ireland was to encourage foreign direct investment into Ireland. On Andy's stat, you could see that Ireland was #1 in the world for foreign direct investment, which is quite the boast. And there's probably a myriad of reasons for that, which I'll come to later. So whilst we were traveling around the world promoting Ireland from a business perspective, I know that Andy referred to, the footprint, I guess, of international businesses that have established in Ireland. And there's actually a really boring reason why companies would come to Dublin and Cork and Ireland other than another destination. And I think that reason for business will ring true for the attendees on this webinar today. And the boring reason is predictability. So the most exciting thing I can tell you about Ireland is it's a stable economy. No surprises. It's been there. Our current governmental policy in respect of inward investment and in respect of investors, namely our taxation policy, has been the same for about 60 years. So we don't tend to change all that often. And we know that businesses like that sort of predictability. So our background is in promoting a government programme. And whilst we were promoting for business, individuals, like the individuals on this webinar today, were asking us, well, that's great for business, but what about for individuals? And mostly they were families, and mostly they have children that they would like to see educated in a Western, evolved, developed, secular, inclusive, democratic country like Ireland. And so one of the things we've done very well here in Ireland is, and I know that Michael Magner later will speak about this with much more interesting insights than I can give, but it is a very welcoming country. And I know because we meet you guys in South Africa very regularly at the rugby match, not often enough at the rugby matches, not often enough for me. And thank you so much again for the gift to CJ Stander. We will never be done thanking you for that. But I think that a lot of South African people, when they come to Ireland, much like every other geography, would always comment very quickly, my goodness, this is a very friendly country. And there's a reason why Ireland is very friendly. We ourselves, historically, are a nation of emigrants. So we, in the poorer times, in the 1800s, would have taken to the ships to go to the United States and St. John's and Australia, New Zealand and South Africa and very many other countries as peasants, as a peasant country. And suppose because we received, we were able to establish as a country in those countries, and in a way to become strong and to be able to progress ourselves economically, we're very open and welcome to other immigrants coming to this country now because our situation is very much altered. Ireland is home, as Andy has mentioned, to 1,300 of the largest multinational corporations who have headquartered in Ireland. And it isn't a brass plate. They employ many, many thousands of people. So our investors tell us all the time, I want my child to go to Trinity College or UCC or UCD. I want them to have that tertiary education. We understand that Ireland is a bridge to the United States of America. and also to Europe, and that we are a committed member of the European Union, meaning if you have permanent residency in Ireland and you go ahead and decide to be naturalised, you can travel freely all over Europe. You can travel to the United States for 90 days, visa-free, and you have access to the world. An Irish passport is something that's very valuable, very sought after. We have never had any conflict in the country other than the conflict that visited us. So we tend to be welcome. In that circumstance, investors can ordinarily expect their children to receive the very best education, and after their education, they will look forward to a fantastic high-paying job in Facebook or Google or Intel or LinkedIn or PayPal and on and on. But of course, Ireland is also a very entrepreneurial country in that 90% of all the GDP revenue in this country is derived from small to medium-sized businesses, such as the brilliant business of Vienna Woods, which you'll hear about later on from Michael. Now, I'm not going to bore you anymore. All I can say to you is this: Ireland is a fantastic place to live. It's a fantastic place to do business. It's welcoming, and people can expect to have a very high standard of living. Ireland is not a poor country. In fact, it's a very wealthy economy. So as Andy has said, you can get the very best of craft beer, and you can do that whilst having some lovely artisan food, likely produced very locally to you. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you here today and to be invited to speak to you. I am one of 4 members of the board of the Irish Diaspora Loan Fund. The Irish Diaspora Loan Fund is a regulated fund, meaning it's regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. So therefore, from a fitness and a probity perspective, we have to perform our duties to the very highest standards as directed by the Central Bank of Ireland. We are also authorised by the Government of Ireland, the Department of Justice, for the purpose of delivering this programme that Sarah is so adept at, this inward investment programme. IDLF does this exclusively. We only work with families like the people on this webinar to encourage them to make the investments. The reason we chose a regulated fund is because it afforded to our investors the opportunity for transparency, so they could see exactly where their money was going. We also, and my colleague Andrew Parrish will speak to the way that we approach our business very later on. I'm calling you today and speaking to you from 14 Stephen's Green, which is right at the corner in the middle of the capital city. I'm sorry for your trouble, Michael. It still actually is the capital city. I apologise. And the reason I say that to you is that we have been in business for 26 years, much like Sable. Our reputation and the experience of our investors is extremely important to us. Any of the people on this webinar that we're going to visit Dublin in the future, the door is open in 14 Stephen's Green for you. My 3 colleagues, my 3 co-board of directors value their reputation. They have invested their time, their effort, their reputation in the fund because what they want and what I want and what our investors should want is a reasonable expectation that their capital will be returned. We want it safe and secure, and so we chose the path of regulation. The very first person on your screen on the left-hand side is Mr. John Bruton. John Bruton is our non-executive director, and he's extremely hands-on, extremely involved in the running of the business, in where the monies actually go to after we make the investment. He's also a former Prime Minister of Ireland. Our word in Ireland for that is Taoiseach. He's an extremely bright, capable, able man who has dedicated time and resources to encouraging investments such as the type of investment that the investors here today might seek to pursue. He also, and he'd hate me saying this, was one of Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs in terms of, prime ministers in terms of balancing the country's budget. I believe he was the only prime minister ever that balanced the budget. Joined beside him in terms of the screen you're looking at is Mr. Richard Horlick. It was very important to our fund that we have the necessary expertise and that we have professionals joining the board that know very well how the best practice of board should operate. Richard Horlick used to be the CEO of Fidelity. He was also head of the largest investment fund in Europe called Schroders, and he comes with great expertise and again very involved in our fund. And on the right-hand side, the chairman of the board is a gentleman called Mr. Terry Clune. Terry Clune is arguably Ireland's most preeminent fintech entrepreneur. He is an extremely successful business person, and he got involved in this fund not for commercial reasons, but I guess out of, like me, a love of Ireland, a love of the promotion of Ireland, and an absolute certainty and security that our investors will be treated as properly and as well as we possibly can. So we all the four of us have that in common. We take this very seriously. We take your investments very seriously. And to have Michael Magner on the panel discussion today to illustrate to the people on this webinar today where our investments likely go and the type of excellent entrepreneurial business people that we choose to help them to realize their ambitions in a very conservative way is a real privilege and an honor. So I thank you, Sarah, I thank you, Andy, for the opportunity to speak to everybody today. I really look forward to listening to the rest of the presentation. I'll hand over to the experts now and look forward to hearing the progressing discussions during the afternoon.
And ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you could have heard a more passionate description of Ireland. And thanks very much again, Joanna. And before we continue with the real interesting content, just a quick re-intro to Sarah Young. Sarah's been with us for a few years. She is a British national living in Cape Town. And I think the theme of really what we as a business do is all about helping people internationalize in a very globalized world. And Sarah, thanks very much for joining us today. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Andy. So I'm just going to talk about the actual program itself. So the Ireland Immigrant Investor program. There are a number of benefits of this program. Why might you be interested in making the investment? Well, it's a quick program in terms of the fact you can secure your Irish permanent residency, which is a stamp 4 visa, in just 6 to 9 months from embarking on the program, on the journey. So you don't go through temporary residency hoops, you go straight to a stamp 4. It does get renewed over the course of the program, but it affords you nearly all the same rights as an Irish citizen without the right to vote, but you get full permanent resident status. There's actually no requirement to relocate to Ireland, and the minimum stay requirement is just 1 day a year in Ireland. So you can maintain your life in South Africa. You can have one family member that potentially wants to relocate ahead of the rest of the family, or you can just travel 1 day a year to Ireland to maintain that residency, so that you're secure in the knowledge that if you did need to leave South Africa, you could hop on a plane and make Ireland your home, with no extra paperwork, no further ado. The main applicant can include their spouse or partner and children up to the age of 24. Now, children between the age of 18 and 24 do need to be enrolled in tertiary education. They do need to be unmarried, and they need to be financially dependent on the main applicant, but you can include your children. Also, they just need to be under the age of 24 at the time of submission of the initial application. So if they're 23 turning 24 and you're concerned that they're going to turn 24 during the program itself, that's not a problem. They just must be under the age of 24 on submission of that first residency application. So as I mentioned, you're not obliged to relocate to Ireland, but you can if you want. And as I said, one family member could potentially move ahead of the main investor. So you're not all tied to the same time frame. So it can be a very popular program for people with children that do want to educate their children in Ireland, perhaps tertiary education. You secure your stamp 4 visa, and then your children at the age of 18 head on over to Ireland. And then they start their 5 years of physical residency in Ireland, enabling them to apply for citizenship further down the line. So those children are not then tied to the fact that the main investor needs to relocate, and it does afford them the right to sort of make their own way on their own timeline and then apply for Irish citizenship, which is obviously a full EU member, so provides full freedom of movement throughout Europe. Not all visas in Ireland count as reckonable residence when applying for citizenship by naturalisation. So this is why this is also very popular, because that stamp 4 does count as that. If your children were to travel to Ireland on a student visa, that time spent in Ireland on a student visa would not count as reckonable residence. By that, what I mean is for reckonable residence, you need 5 years of reckonable residence in order to be able to apply for citizenship. And so that's built up with time spent in Ireland over that 5-year period. So as I mentioned, an Irish passport does provide the freedom to live, work, study and retire in Ireland. and in any other EU country, but due to the common travel agreement with the UK, it is also the only passport that enables you also access to the UK. So you can have full freedom of movement throughout the EU, but you also then, as an Irish passport holder, have also permanent resident status in the UK. So it's the only country that offers that post-Brexit. So also a very big positive for anybody holding, looking to secure a passport that offers multiple options. An Irish passport itself offers visa-free travel to 185 countries. As mentioned earlier by Joanna, you've got that visa-free access to the US, but a multitude of other countries too. So it really is great for global mobility. And there's no language test at all for residency or citizenship. So unlike some of the other European programs, there's no difficulty to then progress onto citizenship. In terms of the actual investment criteria, so all investors must demonstrate a net wealth of at least 2 million euros in order to qualify for the program. There are 4 different investment options, but today we're talking about the approved investment fund, which is the only option that we offer from Sable for a variety of reasons. There's an enterprise investment option where you can invest €1 million, but it's very prescriptive as to which industries you can invest in, and it's actually quite a difficult visa option to follow or pathway to follow. There's the real estate investment fund. It hasn't been popular, mainly due to the fact it requires a much larger investment of 2 million euros. And it is deemed that this path to permanent residency may be discontinued in the future. There's also an endowment option where you can donate 500,000 euros to an Irish not-for-profit organisation or to an organisation that is beneficial to the Irish people. That one, again, for some people it may be the option, but it's a non-refundable donation. So there's no capital return, there's no return on investment. It's a straightforward donation. So therefore, the approved investment fund is by far and away the most popular investment route. It requires an investment of 1 million euros, and Andrew Paris is going to talk you through the IDLF offering in just a moment. On top of the investment, there's really minimal fees when compared to other programs around the world. The government application fee is a standard 1,500 euros per application. There's no additional processing fees. There's no real extras added onto that. That's per application, not per person. And there's approximate due diligence fees of about 3,000 euros per application. So in addition to your 1 million euros, it really is, there's no huge extra 60, 70, 80,000 euros payable like some other programs. It really is very straightforward. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Andrew for him to give you some detailed information on the IDLF and their offering. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thanks, Sarah, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today. I'm delighted to get a chance to speak to everyone. We're delighted to work with Sable, and in fact, I suppose the output of working with Sable led me to having a very enjoyable dinner and a few pints of Guinness last week with one of Sable's clients who actually attended the last seminar that we gave with Sable, and they came to Dublin last week to spend some time here. So I think, by way of introduction, I think I have the best job in IDLF for 2 reasons. One is I get to engage with our clients at the investment level and our wonderful partners like Sable, but I also get the opportunity to engage with where we deploy the capital, and working with my colleague Dermot McHugh on the lending side of things, that we get to work with amazing business owners like Michael Magner that you'll meet in a little while. So my job today is to give you an introduction to what IDLF does and how we do it. I think you've heard already from Joanna and from Sarah that we are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland as an investment fund. In fact, we were the first fund to be established exclusively for the purposes of the IIP and to be registered and regulated and approved by the Central Bank. But apart from that, as Joanna mentioned, we are part of a much larger financial services business called the Taxback Group of Companies, which was established by our chairman, Terry Clune, 26 years ago. And within that group of companies, I think there are 9 separate entities, all associated with international financial transactions of some fashion. So things like due diligence, compliance, anti-money laundering, all of those good things are core to the DNA of everyone within the group. And the fact that we have a background in promoting Ireland for inward investment, and we have a DNA of compliance and working in a regulated environment, made it an obvious thing for us to do, to set up what was the first regulated fund to be approved for the IIP in Ireland. We are different in a couple of respects. The main one being that we were established as a loan origination fund. So that means we're not like the typical equity investment funds that many people here may be more familiar with. So instead of taking investors' capital and then investing that into enterprises or businesses that we hope will increase in value over time to realize a return on investment, the fund operates in the very same way as a small bank would operate. So we pool all of the investors' capital together, and then we provide loans as senior debt to amazing businesses like the Vienna Woods Hotel that you'll see today. But we do that with a mortgage debenture in place as well. So we always take the security over the asset, which protects you, our clients, the investors' capital, and ensures that everything that we do is asset-backed at all times. We're a very simple business in many respects. We have 2 core objectives that really drive everything that we do. And the first of those is to ensure maximum protection of investor capital. So we're not shooting for the stars and trying to generate massive returns, because that always entails taking risk. What we do is we follow a very conservative, low risk policy to provide loans to credible, established businesses that have a track record in business that we can assess and review, that have been profitable, that already have existing positive relations with a pillar bank. So we're able to do very good due diligence on an existing asset and on an existing business operator, which is very different to putting money into a speculative project that has yet to be developed. So that history gives us the confidence in understanding the business, both in terms of its history to date, but it gives us the confidence then in terms of looking at plans and projections going forward. So when somebody like Michael says, I have this amazing plan for the future of the Vienna Woods Hotel, we can see what that trajectory looks like, because we've been able to do the due diligence on his track record to date. So what we do is we provide useful finance to help businesses like Michael's to increase employment, which ultimately is the ultimate goal of the Immigrant Investor Program, and to help him to bring his business to its true potential. So we really enjoy that potential to come into a business, provide the right kind of capital that facilitates an ambitious business owner to get the best out of their business. Because we operate within the constraints of the IIP, we are limited to what we can do and the sectors that we can lend to. And they are the sectors that are approved by the government through the IIP. So specifically, we can provide finance to the hotel sector, to nursing homes and retirement elderly care facilities, but also to the development of social and affordable housing schemes that are underwritten by a local government or an approved housing body contract. And in every case, we will only provide funding when it is secured against the assets of the business to protect our investors' interest. In the team here, and there are a number of my colleagues are on the call here today. So what we do is we work very closely with credible partners such as Sable to provide a really good customer experience. Investing in a fund can be a very dry transactional thing, but what we try and do is act as a trusted guide. So a long time before an investment becomes a meaningful requirement or a consideration, we like to spend time with prospective clients, making sure that they understand why Ireland makes sense for them, if it does, what the IIP entails, what we do in IDLF. But we really try and act as that local concierge to give them all the answers to the questions that the people on this call may have. Whether it's about what's Ireland like to live in, where do we find a good place to live, what's the education system like, what's the price of property and what are the property markets like at the moment, how do we set up a business here, how do we get our kids into university. All of those questions are the things that our team are happy to answer on a day-to-day basis. Because ultimately it's about developing trust. It's about building a relationship with us, building trust in Ireland as an economy and a place that you may want to relocate to in the future. And all of that trust comes from gathering the right kind of information and to give you that in an unbiased fashion. We're very proud, actually, with all the clients that we have worked with, we have a 100% approval track record. And that's because we like to spend that time ensuring that the right applications are made. We have and enjoy very, very good relationship with the Immigration Authority. So we're able to work very closely with them to ensure that the applications that we are able to file directly, we don't need an immigration law firm here in Dublin, we're able to file directly, which gives us that ability to build relationships both with the client and with the immigration authorities. But really, that's only the start of the journey. Once an application has been made and the client has been approved and completed their investment, we really do like to walk the road with them. Those families that have chosen to come to Ireland and establish themselves here, we have great pleasure in helping them find a place to live, help their children to get into school, introduce them to the relevant professional services that they may require when they're here. Prior to COVID, we were having regular networking evenings where they can meet like-minded people who have walked a similar journey. We are now doing online social evenings, but hopefully getting back into real-world events very soon. And really, we open up, as Joanna mentioned, we are a very well-established business here located in the very heart of Dublin. So we open up our professional and personal networks to our clients such that they can become integrated into the environment here as well. But of course, this is all me saying everything. And what I thought I'd do just for a couple of slides is to reflect back what our clients say. We conducted a survey last month of all of our clients who have been through the program and have invested, and a number of whom are living here in Ireland. And we asked them, why did you select Ireland as your choice for second residency? And these are straight quotes lifted from their responses, which comes back to the kind of things that both Andy and Sarah mentioned at the start of the event. We are English speaking, at least a version of the English language. We are a stable and committed member of the European Union. We have a very strong, stable, secure economy. I think we're probably renowned for having a very peaceful, beautiful environment, and the country is actually a very wonderful place to travel around. Interestingly, recognizing the extent of the tech opportunities here in Ireland, some of our clients see an opportunity to get involved in that and to invest in exciting startups. But more and more people recognize that Ireland really is an attractive plan B because of that 1 day per year residency requirement and the flexibility that the IIP provides somebody who may want to have that opportunity to live somewhere else and maybe the potential to move at relatively short notice, but don't necessarily want to move straight away. So the Irish program provides a very good option for that. The second thing we asked them was, why did they invest in IDLF? And I'm delighted with the kind of response that we have seen here, as we would have hoped. That there is a recognition that we're regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. There is a recognition that we provide capital safety and security for the investors' capital, but also importantly, and I think Joanna mentioned this in her introduction, we are, as a regulated entity, required to be fully transparent and communicate extensively with our clients before they invest, at the point of investment, and thereafter. So all of our clients know exactly what's going on in the fund at any one point in time. Really pleasing for us to see that there's a recognition for the reputation that we have garnered for ourselves, both through the reputation of the board members, but also people are hearing from others that we are a good place for people to come for the purposes of investing to secure their residency. And in fact, it is probably how we measure our own success is by the extent of investors that come to us through referrals from other investors who have already made that journey. That really gives us great confidence that we're doing the right thing at least. And I thought it would be useful just to share this slide, which is an exact quote from one of our investors who went through the program. And it really does speak to and summarizes all of the things that we would hope, that they recognize that, the English language is a priority, that Ireland is a beautiful country, that people who have already have moved here have recommended it and have been pleased with their decision. We're delighted to see that they're grateful that they're working with IDLF, and pleased that we're working with some of our amazing staff like Pauline, who's referenced here. And I think it really is encouraging to us when we see those kind of experiences reflected back to us, and gives us confidence that we're doing the right thing. It's always, I suppose, front of everyone's minds at the moment is what's going on with COVID in the world. I have to say it's been very encouraging recently, to see how Ireland has performed. And in fact, we now have over 93% of the population vaccinated. And a combination of that statistic and the fact that we have such a resilient economy has meant that Bloomberg a couple of weeks ago listed Ireland in the #1 position in terms of COVID resilience. So effectively what they're saying is the best place in the world to live in a COVID environment is Ireland, because of the strength of the economy, because of the vaccination rollout and the strength of the health system here. So that's a very encouraging vote of confidence in what we're doing. So just by way of summary, we believe, clearly we're biased, but we believe Ireland's a great country to live in, and we're pleased to hear that being reflected back to us from our clients. It's also a great place to work and to do business in, and for children to be educated in. Now is a really good time to invest in Ireland. As Joanna mentioned at the outset, it's a very welcoming place to be. It may not be so welcoming when Ireland's playing South Africa in rugby, and that will be a true test of citizenship if any of you decide to become naturalised in Ireland, as to who you will be shouting for on match day. But Ireland really is a good place to be. And I think, a lot of South Africans that we know who have come here actually find that it feels kind of familiar. And IDLF as an investment product provides a very safe, transparent, heavily regulated option for people who are risk averse. But that's, I suppose, all about our investors and what we do. But the value, I guess, and the thing that we enjoy the most is where we deploy that capital and where we put money to work to support Irish businesses to create and sustain new employment. And here's a snapshot of just a few of the businesses that we've supported: the Delphi Hotel and Resort Hotel, Eccles Hotel down in Cork, the Ice House Hotel in the northwest of Ireland, Hotel Doolin, which is very close to the famous Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, the Sunhill Nursing Home. And central to all of that, and I'm delighted to introduce now Michael Magner, who is the owner-manager of the Vienna Woods Hotel, which is an amazing, amazing example of the very best of the kind of businesses that we are delighted to support. And I'm pleased to say we managed to get that deal done right as COVID was kicking off, and every other lender, I think, in the world was running away from doing business. And we worked hard to get that deal done right at probably the toughest time in history to do so. And we're thrilled to have it done. So I'm delighted to introduce Michael to give you an introduction to the wonderful Vienna Woods.
Andrew, thank you for the introduction, and good evening to everybody in South Africa. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to address you this evening. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to share a little bit about my background with you and also my experience with IDLF. My name is Michael Magner. I'm the owner of the 4-star Cork's Vienna Woods Hotel, and it's located in Cork City. Those of you who may not be familiar with Cork, Cork is Ireland's second largest city, with a population in and around 500,000 people once you take the city and the areas around Cork into consideration. The city is famous for its industry and also is home to one of the largest pharmaceutical bases in Europe. And of course, Apple computers have the European headquarters located in Cork. My property sits on 22 acres of wonderful grounds, 10 minutes from the city centre, and comprises of 46 guest rooms, an extensive conference and banqueting facility, and we're a family-owned hotel. I purchased the hotel hotel with my business partner back in 2006, and with the support of my wife and my 3 children, they're our future generation. They encouraged me to engage with my business partner. So in 2019, we bought out my business partner, and we now are the independent owners of our beautiful hotel. So with any business, you need to have finance to keep your doors open. You need, I suppose, capital in order to ensure you meet the demands of the business, to future-proof it, to think around strategy, and also as well to ensure that you're meeting not just the demands of profit line, but also, I suppose, your corporate and your social responsibility as a business operator in terms of creating and employing jobs, divesting those jobs and those monies created from those jobs back into the local community, and of course, future-proofing the business as well. So in 2020, a year after I taking over the ownership of the hotel, I wanted to look at the way in which my business was capitalized, but also the senior debt that I had on my business. And I'm a member of the Irish Hotels Federation, which is one of the largest representative body in Ireland representing hotels and guest houses in the country. And the Irish Hotels Federation shared with me information about IDLF and the Irish Diaspora Loan Fund and what was involved with it. And the Irish Hotels Federation had in fact endorsed IDLF and said, listen, this was a very good solution for a business like mine that was independently owned and operated, located in a strategic part of the country, and that it had, I suppose, an effort to work towards into the future. So with that in mind, I started, I suppose, doing some research about IDLF, and I learned very quickly that not just had the IDLF had the endorsement of the Irish Hotels Federation, but two had the endorsement of the Irish government in many ways through the Department of Finance and of course our central bank here in the country. So I knew in terms of doing my background research that the IDLF was something that was well respected and was a very, I suppose, suitable solution for me and my business. I also had a look at the IDLF website and I learned about the board members. And while Joanna introduced the board members to you, what I learned is that these board members of IDLF are very well respected business people and leaders, not just here in Ireland, but internationally. So that put me at comfort straight away. So I started my engagement with IDLF, and I have to say from the very first day I met with Andrew Parish, the engagement has been absolutely incredible from my experience. I suppose Andrew shared with me the vision for IDLF, but also how IDLF could work in terms of protecting the investors, which you may potentially might be, but also how IDLF could work in terms of, I suppose, developing my business and bringing it across to the next, I suppose, generation as well, which is what I'm about. I'm doing my thing. I have 3 children, and what I'm doing in my business is about creating an opportunity for them to have a business when I retire in whatever length of time that would be. And that, I think, is important for anybody who may be a potential investor in terms of looking to ensure their investment is in a secure, sound space. And it's not my intention to put my hotel up for sale tomorrow. It's not my intention to have a quick sale and run out the door. My business is about my family and the future I can give for them as well. One of the key things as well that IDLF shared with me was their mission also looked at job creation. And since we've been working with IDLF and since through COVID, we've had the opportunity to create 136 jobs here at the hotel. And those jobs are across all disciplines in hospitality. So therefore, significant monies are being generated back into the local economy in forms of wages, purchases from our suppliers, and having the backing of IDLF behind me and my business allows me to do that, because one of the fundamental points that Andrew shared with me in terms of the mission and part of the focus is IDLF, while there is strong regulation and that has to be there, your money needs to be minded, and I'm the custodian in a way of your investment. Also the IDLF say, well, listen, we want you to go and run your business, allow your business to breathe, focus on ensuring your targets are met in terms of your customer satisfaction, growing your business, sales, reducing your level of turnover within your organization. And as Andrew very well put it, right before COVID started, we moved across into IDLF. And I can guarantee you, if I had not been with IDLF through COVID, a significant percentage of my time would have been dealt with dealing with pillar banks because of the procedures and process they have. But sometimes that time that's required allows you to remove your focus, and when your focus should be on the business. And with IDLF, that focus has allowed me to be on the business. And during COVID, we've allowed our business to grow. We've had a very successful trading period, even through COVID. Our figures suggest that, and that has been shared with IDLF with quarterly reports that we share with them, in terms of our commitment to, I suppose, protecting your interests by us sharing the information back to IDLF. But also, as well as that, it has allowed me as well to focus on bringing the business to the next level. And in April of this year, we submitted an application to our local government to seek permission to construct an additional 42 guest rooms at the hotel, pre-reception space and a spa facility at the property. And we're hoping to develop that additional space over the next period of time with support from IDLF. So IDLF has allowed me do that, and supported me in doing that as well. So it's about creating opportunities into the future as well. One of the very first meetings I had with Andrew, when I started, I suppose, engaging with IDLF, is Andrew did his due diligence as well. I had my checkout done with the IDLF, but Andrew had his due diligence done as well. And the heartening conversation I had with Andrew after one of our first meetings, I said, Andrew, if you and I decide to do business together, please mind me. And that is, I've never seen a truer word, because we're being minded right through our relationship with IDLF. And I see the testimonial from one of the IDLF investors, and their comment was, the service is excellent. Let me share that from a customer of IDLF and your investment. The service is excellent. I have been minded, I've been supported, and I've been allowed to operate and run my business. And that's what we need to do as business operators. I'm a hotelier. My job is about keeping my door open and welcoming guests, because if my guests are looked after, well, then they're going to come back. And in Ireland, so many of the hotel experiences are now managed and run by perhaps investment funds, and you don't see the face of the business involved in the business on occasion. That it's important that independent hotel owners still are there in Ireland, and IDLF provides that solution as well. I should say as well, IDLF, they listened to me and they understood our mission, but more importantly, they captured the vision that I have for my business. And by the way, they've given me really good advice as well. And that's really, really important for me, because we got to look outside our own enclosed, I suppose, capacity in our minds at sometimes, and to get outside experience and advice to help run our business. And at any time, I've picked up the phone on occasion, chatted with Andrew, even after hours and at weekends. And I apologize, Andrew, for doing that, but it's been very, very beneficial for me. I should say as well that in Ireland, our economy is prospering. We've got through COVID very well. The future is bright. And as Andrew explained with regard to the type of, I suppose, investment models that IDLF look at, hotels are a very hot property in Ireland right now, along with the other areas like the nursing home sector and so forth. So I'm proud to be a customer of IDLF. I'm proud to speak on behalf of my business, but also to support the IDLF message here today, because it's true. And and I suppose I went through tough times in my business, through a recession in 2009. I never want to be back there again. I never want to have that experience, because it has an impact on how you look at things and also on your health. And moving forward, knowing that I can work with people that understand our business, understand our model, and support us along the way. That's what it's all about. And that's been proven to me through COVID as well, to help my business get along. So that's about it, to share it with you. I suppose the last few points I want to raise with you, if any of you in South Africa intend on visiting Ireland, please visit Cork. Cork's a great spot. I was the World Irish Coffee Champion in 1996. I still make wonderful Irish coffees. maybe better than the beer, but I'd love to make an Irish coffee for you. And as Joanna said, that in St. Stephen's Green, their door is open. By God, our door is always open as well in Cork. So thank you very much, and lovely to meet you all.
Wow, Michael, thank you very much. I certainly know where I'm heading when I next come over to Ireland. I've actually never been down to Cork. I've heard good things about it and have friends down there. So I do look forward to meeting you. More importantly, I think, the theme and what's been spoken about a lot here is professionalism, track record, and really, for us as Sable, it's really, really important when we choose partners in foreign countries like the IDLF, is that there's, that we have similar values, and we're all aligned in terms of what we're trying to achieve for our clients. And it's really important, not only for our reputation, but, we as people and certainly our partners in Ireland, the IDLF, really want you guys as investors to succeed. So thanks very much for touching on that. I must say, I'm very heartened to see how well Ireland is doing, because there are a lot of countries that are battling post-COVID, and I think the Irish have been very pragmatic and I think also dynamic in the way they've dealt with it. And that's really something very much for people sitting in South Africa, whether you're thinking of Ireland as a possible plan A or a plan B, is to really understand the differences between the two environments. An emerging market with a very, very tough economic and policy environment. It is just so refreshing to see a country that's forward thinking and understands that it needs to be well educated and think hard about how to stay relevant in the modern world. So we're getting down towards the sort of back end of the webinar. I don't want to keep anyone for more than an hour, and we probably do want to have one or two questions. But just very quickly, it's important to understand, if you're sitting down in South Africa and you're thinking about making an investment in Ireland, it is quite daunting. And I think this is really where the Sable IDLF partnership comes in. It's really important. We are a South African DNA business. We understand South Africans for 26 years. We've been helping South Africans internationalize either themselves, their wealth, their businesses, their children. And we would really like to have a chat to you. And we offer a turnkey solution. We understand your structure. We try and understand what your objectives are and to see whether this program, in fact, will work for you. We will provide you with a full cost estimate from start to finish, and all the funny little things like, you really have to understand when you start doing these programs, every year you need to go across the island. That's air tickets. How many of you are there? This is not something for the faint-hearted. These programs do cost a lot of money. And we're also very transparent in the way we will present, the whole solution to you throughout the journey to citizenship. I think you can see we've got good partners here, and they've got access to the best service providers in Ireland, and that for us is really important. On the ground in South Africa, we offer you all the support. Very difficult dealing with home affairs, particularly at the moment post-COVID, helping you collate all the documents for the application. We can also do your foreign exchange tax. We can do your foreign tax clearance certificates. If you need to move more money than your annual allowance, we can do special approvals through the Reserve Bank. So really, it is a kind of a one-stop shop. It sounds a bit cheesy, but we do try and cover all aspects. The other thing as well that we do is we'll talk to you about the tax implications and also any sort of estate planning around any offshore investments as well. So that's just a little bit of detail there. I think maybe if all the panelists could turn on their cameras and switch off their microphones, and we're going to have a very brief Q&A. The good thing is there are not many questions, which is, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. We've still got a good attendance, and unless everyone's just fallen asleep and forgotten to switch their computers off. But here's one interesting question from Margie. If we emigrate to Ireland, do we qualify for state medical insurance immediately or only after a while? Do we qualify only once we full citizens? If so, how would we provide for our own medical costs in the interim? I'm not sure who would like to answer that question.
Yep, I'm happy to take that, Andy. So it is a requirement under the IIP that a successful investor, if they come to Ireland, does need to take out private health insurance, because one of the things that the government want to avoid is people becoming a burden on the state, is the phrase that they use. So we have a public health system here. So, if anybody comes to Ireland and you're unfortunate enough to be hit by a bus crossing the street, you will be treated at the nearest hospital with the best of care that's available without any questions as to whether you're insured or not. So that's important to understand. But if you are moving to Ireland under the IIP, you do need to have private health insurance. It's not a huge burden in terms of costs, particularly we have conversations with all of our American clients who wince when we say health insurance is a requirement. A couple here can get annual health insurance for about €1,200 for a couple. So that's the extent of the requirement. For those that are only coming for the 1 day a year, clearly you don't need to have health insurance here in Ireland. That your ordinary travel insurance will provide that level of cover. Once you become an Irish citizen, or indeed once you've completed your 5 years under the IIP program, that requirement to have health insurance falls away. So you enjoy the same as any other Irish citizen. But I would say pretty much everyone who works in Ireland or has retired will hold private health insurance anyway, just because it gives you additional options.
Thanks very much, Andrew. And then, Chris, we have a question here. After the initial 5 years of residency, can one stay on the program?
The answer is yes. So at the end of 5 years, your investment will have been returned, but you simply renew your Stamp 4 visa for a further 5 years. And in fact, it gets even better from a flexibility perspective, because that second 5-year permission, you do not need to come to Ireland for 1 day a year. So you can continue to renew your Stamp 4 without having to make a further investment and without having to come every year. But of course, if people have chosen to come to Ireland and live here, they can either continue as a permanent resident under Stamp 4, or if they develop the necessary proof of residency, they can actually apply for citizenship by naturalization after 5 years.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, here's another question. If after approval, when is the first time that I would need to visit Ireland?
So, sorry, Sarah, do you want to take that?
No, I was just going to say, you're welcome to answer that, Andrew, but just so previously, pre-COVID, you needed to travel into Ireland to officially collect your approval in principle. Now, one of the forward-thinking ways that the Irish government has adapted post-COVID is that you actually don't need to do that now. Your approval in principle and the date issued on that letter is the date of the start of your Stamp 4 permanent residency. And you actually have now 2 years to travel into Ireland to formalize the collection of those documents. So that was completely adapted, put in place, and obviously now it's very welcoming, because people don't quite know what travel restrictions are going to be in place. So there's a lot more freedom, and you are not sacrificing the start date of that permanent residency, waiting for you to physically travel to Ireland to collect your permit.
Thank you, Sarah. Here's another question. How long should I give to start gathering my documents? That's probably a question for you, Sarah, as well.
So here in South Africa, we know there are difficulties in securing some of the documents, but we, Sable and the IDLF together, will hold your hand through the whole journey. We prepared fully tailored document checklists and guide you as to the easiest way to source those documents. If you want to move quickly and you want to expedite them, then we've got alternative third-party document assist agents that we have relationships with that we can direct you to. If you prefer to, you're not in any rush, you're happy to wait for SAPS for Home Affairs, you can also apply in the direct manner. I would say it can take anything from a sort of a month 6 weeks, 8 weeks to secure all the necessary documentation. Sometimes it could be faster. It also depends on your family layout, if you're a single applicant or if you've got a spouse or if you've got children. Adult dependent children require slightly more documentation, but we would walk you through that and guide you accordingly. But I would normally advise it could take about 8 weeks or so to secure all the documents for submission.
Great, thanks so much. And this could be a question either for Joanna or possibly for you, Andrew, is how are all the underlying businesses that the IDLF have funded performing? How are they performing at the moment?
Well, I think, and I'm happy to jump in, I think the fact that Michael is here and smiling in front of you is evidence that they're performing well. And I think it's been an incredible experience for us to see the resilience and the entrepreneurial mindset that business owners like Michael have brought to bear during COVID, where this was an unforeseen, unpredictable catastrophe to hit everyone. And yet all of the businesses that we have supported through IDLF, Michael's included, have performed way ahead of what they had expected when this started. They have all finished the year profitably. And in fact, a couple of our businesses have had their most profitable years ever, despite a global pandemic. Wow. So not only can I say with absolute confidence and a great deal of pride that none of our loans are impaired in any way, we have no defaulting loans, I'm also super proud to say that all of the businesses that we have supported have actually performed out of their socks despite the challenges that COVID has imposed. And it's a real testament both to the business owners like Michael, but also to the environment here and to the government supports that have facilitated and supported and been useful in ensuring that businesses have performed to the extent that they have.
Yeah, well, I think that's testament to the government. I mean, it's amazing because, the tourism industry in most countries has been absolutely smashed. A great question here from Andre. Nobody's spoken about the returns on the fund. Am I missing something? I'm not sure. Maybe there was a break in the connectivity for a while. But what is the performance track record? What is the return on investment?
So as I mentioned at the outset, as a senior debt fund, we operate very differently to an equity fund where the performance and return on investment rises and falls depending on the stock market or the underlying assets. As a debt fund, we earn our income for the fund by making loans available to companies like Michael's. And the fund is effectively established and set up to earn sufficient interest to cover the cost of running the fund and not to impose and require investors to cover the ongoing costs of running the fund. So it's effectively cost neutral as an entity. So the positive thing about investing in IDLF is that low risk certainty that comes with the environment that you're investing into and the certainty that you get your capital back at the end of the investment period. And because it is low risk, it is consequently low return. So investors should expect no return on their investment other than their full capital returned. And that's really the way the fund has been structured. So by way of saying the fund has performed in line with its mission and its strategy, it has absolutely, but that's different to saying you don't get a financial return on your investment as you would if you were in a speculative high-risk investment fund.
Thanks, Andrew. So slightly better than some of these European banks where you're getting negative interest rates at the moment.
Correct.
Andre, yeah, that is a good question, and I've noted your comment. We are working in a very low interest environment in the EU, so but in return you are getting permanent residency in a first world country. So that is the opportunity. Brian has a question here. Would this program work if you were looking to relocate a fintech business to Ireland and seek further funding? In other words, could you invest in your own business through the investment vehicle, or does the IDLF sit on its own investment panels?
Yeah, there's a few questions in the middle of that. So I'll unravel them as we go. So does this program work if you wanted to bring your own company to Ireland and invest in it? Unfortunately, it does not. So there are only specific sectors that the IIP is approving for investment. So investing in your own business doesn't currently qualify under the IIP. Can IDLF invest in things other than the areas that I mentioned. Currently, we cannot. We are limited to the areas that are of priority to the Irish government through the IIP, namely hotels and nursing homes and social and affordable housing. Having said that, we have a great many of our clients who are business people and recognize that once they secure the Stamp 4 visa for themselves and their family, they can come to Ireland, get a job, establish their own business, invest in other businesses. So you enjoy all the same rights to live and work in Ireland as an Irish citizen, other than holding an Irish passport. So what many of our clients are looking at doing is using the IIP investment as a surefire way of getting that Stamp 4 visa, which then enables them to do whatever they wish to do when they are here. And we have a couple of clients that are establishing businesses here, knowing that they may need to put some seed capital into their business now, but when their capital is returned, when their investment in IDLF matures, they can then put all of that back into their local business as they wish. So the Stamp 4 gives them the flexibility and the freedom to invest in anything they wish to do themselves. Unfortunately, IDLF is constrained to the sectors that we can put our capital into.
Right. Look, I think it's gone 5 past the hour. I think it's been very, very informative, and I'd like to thank again all the panelists. You've been amazing. I've certainly learned more today, and maybe what I'd like to do is just ask if you'd each like to maybe just have a closing comment before I wrap up. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much. I think we had some really nice questions there, and Brian's comment, thanks. The answer was very clear. So Andrew, thank you. I think your answers have been brilliant and very clear. So Joanna, do you want to maybe just give us a parting shot why we should come to Ireland? Anything more after what you said?
Well, I suppose we've well covered the topic of why Ireland and why Ireland for education and why Ireland for business. So I won't go there. But I suppose just to reinforce and leave everybody with the assurance that, from an IDLF perspective, we aren't, what might be typically coined a greedy fund. We're here for investors in the most meaningful way possible. We give a service to our clients really all the way through, not just for the application and the approval, but all the way through their journey to moving and living in Ireland, as Andrew has spoken about, through all of their needs. And, we have very, very strong roots here in Ireland. We have very, very strong business connections. We like nothing better than hosting introductions, particularly the reference to fintech. Ireland is a fintech hub. There's lots and lots of business done in that space. So nothing makes us happier as a team than investors asking us more and better and more fulsome questions. It's what gets us up in the morning. And I'm sure there's many different questions that people are shy to ask on this, but we have a whole team of people here that are waiting and delighted to answer even what our investors might think is a stupid question. There isn't a stupid question. So thanks so much, Andy and Sarah, and all of the people that joined today. And we look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thanks for your time. Andrew?
Yeah, it's very, I suppose, very little further to add other than, I suppose, when people talk about, investment and, migration, it often sounds like a dry financial thing. We take pride in the fact that we're a people business. We enjoy working with, wonderful people like Sarah and you, Andy, who provide that professionalism that we need to have in terms of engaging with our clients. We love nothing more than working with families from South Africa, from the US, from Hong Kong, who choose to make Ireland their home. It gives us the best feeling in the world to be able to showcase the country that we love. And as importantly, we love working with amazing people like Michael and other business owners, where we're able to connect up the wonderful opportunity that we're given by way of people investing and trusting their capital to our fund, that we in turn can then put that to work to help amazing business owners like Michael. So today has it's been wonderful for us to share some of our experiences. It's been great to meet in a virtual fashion with all the people on the seminar today. And we really hope to meet some of them in person, like I did with Andre last week when they come to Dublin. So thanks for the opportunity today.
Thanks so much. And then to our wonderful hotelier, the only thing you can offer us is either a free night or a free beer.
How about starting with a free beer, Andrew, and we'll have a negotiation on the accommodation rates?
Yeah.
Thank you. And listen, it was lovely to have the opportunity to meet everybody in South Africa as you head into your summer. Ireland is an incredible country. We've an amazing work-life balance, quality of life, not just for anybody heading towards retirement, but for your young children. There's sports, there's education, there's activities. As a proud Irishman, I'm very proud to be raising my children in our wonderful country. And I'd love to think that folks from outside of Ireland would have the opportunity to experience that as well. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being on. And Sarah, a quick closing statement.
Yes, absolutely. I would just say, please do reach out to us if you've got any questions, if you want any information, any clarifications. If you're not sure which investment migration program might be the best fit for you, in addition to Ireland, we can help with other programs too. We'll always outlay the full cost estimate. We'll talk you through your options. And if Ireland is the right program for you, then I can set up a video call with Andrew, with Pauline as well, who we mentioned earlier. I work very closely with her at the IDLF, so that we can answer all the specific questions unique to you, your family, and your situation. So please do reach out to me. You can contact me on im@sableinternational.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much to all of you again. And I find that really, really informative. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wrap up. So I think it's important just to say at the end, and I always do this, is that Sable International, we don't really advocate that people, run away from their homelands just because there's a bit of political and all sorts of other instabilities and all the insecurities that people like us do worry about, but really do make use of your offshore allowances, where you at least can start a hedging strategy to mitigate against a lot of the risks that we do face in emerging market third world countries like South Africa. I know that on this particular program, one of the most attractive things about it, I think, is where people have got young children who possibly are going to be needing tertiary education at some stage. This is a great plan B, where the children actually, under their own steam on their permanent residency, can actually travel to Ireland and go and study over there and start actually building up, necessary time there to ultimately become citizens in their own right. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to leave, but it really creates a fantastic path for your offspring, and also into a ready first world economy. So it is a fantastic solution. And just be really wary out there. There are lots of really good deals. We're very aware that at the moment, South Africans are being heavily targeted by people all over the world. Everybody knows what happened with the riots in July in KwaZulu-Natal. People are very emotive and quite fearful at the moment. It's not all going to collapse in the next month or two. So take your time. These are really big decisions. And if you need any help, please do reach out to us and our team. So thanks very much. Thanks again to all of you for giving us an hour of your time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.